Hey everyone, I'm Miss Lind and I'm going to read Murphy's Ticket, the goofy start and glorious end of the Chicago Cubs' Billy Goat curse. If you're a Cubs fan, you'll love this book. You get to hear about how we broke that curse. If you're not a Cubs fan, nothing to fear. You get to hear about how we were cursed for 108 years. This book has something for everyone. Let's get into it. This is by Brad Herzog and it is illustrated by David Leonard. Like the famous ivy in Wrigley Field that clings to the outfield wall, a legend has grown throughout the years about the curse of Chicago baseball. It tells of a goat who lived long ago and the fans of a lovable team who never lost their loyalty or their faith in a World Series dream. The story began with a bump in the road and that goat in the back of a truck. Who would believe that this was the start of Chicago Cubs baseball bad luck? As the baby goat stood on his spindly legs over the bump, the truck rumbled. The goat lost his footing, flew head over hooves, and right out the back he then tumbled. So the curious fellow wandered the city, staring up at all the skyscrapers. He kicked some stray cans, chased them around, and nibbled on daily newspapers. At that time, a fellow named Billy Sianis owned a Chicago saloon. He needed more customers. Business was slow. He tried everything under the moon. What else can I do? Billy wondered, keeping busy by sweeping the floor. Suddenly, a bright light filled the room and a little goat skipped through the door. Billy looked down at his furry young guest, and he knew the moment they met that their paths had crossed for a reason. He hugged this lost goat, a new pet. "I'll call you Murphy," Billy announced. "You'll have a new home here. Why not?" And soon it was rare to see Billy without his long-eared, four-legged mascot. His customers soon loved Murphy too, and Billy Sianis took note. He shaved his beard into a goatee and said, "Just call me Billy Goat." That's how the Billy Goat Tavern was born, but how did it rise to great fame? Well, Billy Goat purchased 2 tickets to a fateful World Series game. It was October 6th, 1945, and even on that long ago date, the Cubs hadn't won a championship since way back in 1908. Yet the loyal fans packed Wrigley Field for a World Series played in the sun. The outlook was brilliant for the home team. They led Detroit 2-1. And who came to root for the Cubs that fine day? Billy Goat and his faithful sidekick. 1 ticket for him and 1 for his pal, although Murphy just gave it a lick. As Billy marched right into Wrigley, Murphy trotted close behind. The pair paraded around the field, and at first no one seemed to mind. The spectators cheered this strange new Cubs fan. Murphy bucked and galloped with pride. And that outfield grass, it looked delicious. The little goat's eyes opened wide. When the game was about to begin, Billy said, "It's time to get seated." "Come on, Murphy, it's the World Series." "Meh," was all the goat bleated. A man was supposed to seat them, but instead he just blocked their path. "No chance," he said. "That goat really stinks." It was true. Murphy needed a bath. "Billy Goat, you can stay," said the man, "but Murphy, well, he has to go." Billy stood quietly, let out a sigh, and then whispered a single word. "No." Sure, Billy loved the Cubbies, but he loved Murphy most of all. Nothing meant more to him than his dear pet, not even World Series baseball. Maybe the sky grew suddenly dark. Clouds blew in on that sunny day. Maybe time stopped, just for a moment. What now would Billy Goat say? Billy peered toward the big wooden scoreboard. His cheeks and his eyes became red. "Them Cubs, they ain't gonna win no more," are the fateful words Billy Goat said. He stomped straight out of the ballpark, muttering, "Those Cubbies, they're done." And so began years of Cubs misery. Billy Goat's curse had begun. The Cubbies lost that ball game, and they dropped the next one as well. In fact, when they lost the World Series, Billy Goat asked, "Now who smells?" Wait till next year, Cubs fans declared, and they really believed every word. But once the next season was over, the Cubbies found themselves in third. The following year, the Cubs came in sixth. Their fortunes had fallen so fast. The year after that, they lost 90 games. The Cubbies finished in last. As the years passed, the spirit of Murphy seemed to visit the Cubs now and then. Whenever it seemed that the team would come close, the curse would just pop up again. He was there when a black cat ran onto the field, surely an unlucky sign, and the Cubs suddenly dropped from first place in late summer 1969. When a ball rolled through the first baseman's legs in the playoffs 1984, and the Cubs missed out on the World Series again, had Murphy been watching the score? In 2003, in the playoffs again, history was in the making. Cubs fans believed it might be the year. The stadium seemed to be shaking. With just one more win, they'd reach the World Series. Chicago led in the 8th inning. A pop-up was hit. The crowd held its breath. The Cubs were just 5 outs from winning. But some fans got in the way that day. The left fielder couldn't catch the foul ball. 8 runs scored. Murphy could not be ignored after this, the closest near miss of all. But 2016, it felt different. The Cubs were baseball's best team. After so many frustrating seasons, Chicago fans still dared to dream. Go count up baseball's red stitches. You'll find 108, the same number of years since the Cubbies were champs. Hey, hey, holy cow! Was it fate? And then on a crisp autumn night at the field on Chicago's north side, the Cubs finally won the National League. A whole city swelled with great pride. Could they really win the World Series? Cleveland's team would be their foe. Down 3-1, the Cubbies needed to win each of the 3 games to go. The Cubs won Game 5 and then Game 6 too. One final night would decide it. With 4 outs to go, Chicago was winning, but wouldn't you know, Cleveland tied it. Cubs fans all over the country thought back to the curse and their pain, and that's when the clouds began weeping. That's right, it started to rain. Was it the tears from so many years from so many Cubs fans in the sky who'd never been able to witness a World Series W fly? But then the rain suddenly stopped. After midnight, the Cubs grabbed their bats. And in the 10th inning, the Cubs won the game. No more curse, no foul balls, no black cats. Fans in Chicago poured into the streets. The Cubs were the kings of baseball. And it could be, that somewhere Murphy cheered loudest of all. And that is the end of our story, but the author also includes some interesting facts here. It says, do you believe in Billy Goat's curse? If not, consider this. In 1969, the Cubs were in first place for 155 days, but they lost 17 out of their last 25 games and finished in second place behind New York's Miracle Mets. The general manager and the announcer for the Mets had the same last name, Murphy. In 1984, the Cubs reached the playoffs for the first time in 39 years. They won their first 2 games against the San Diego Padres, but they lost the last 3 at San Diego's ballpark, Jack Murphy Stadium. In 2015, the Cubs made it to the National League Championship Series, but the Mets beat them thanks to a batting hero who slugged 4 home runs. His last name? I bet you can guess. Murphy. And that is the end of Murphy's Ticket. I hope you loved it. We all miss you guys so much, and we can't wait to see you again soon.